Welcome to Legacy Lounge, the podcast where you'll discover how to lead with purpose and build a legacy that matters. So if you're ready to step into your full potential, show up authentically for yourself and others, and create a lasting impact on the world, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome to another episode with the Legacy Lounge podcast. I am honored to have not only a friend, but a mentor and personal advocate of my own. Jennifer Pinter is joining us for today. Jennifer is a client experience leader who supports others in their go-to-market strategies. This woman has so many skills up her sleeve, and I am so excited for our conversation today and know that you will take some stuff with you by the end. Jennifer, welcome to the show. And why don't you introduce yourself or share with the audience anything you would like them to know about you before we dive in?
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Brenna, and I love that introduction. I'm really excited to be talking about leadership today. I think it's such an important topic and has a lot of impact on the well-being of the people in your care. And so I love that you're dedicating your life to helping people in this area. Wow. Well, about me, I am probably a little bit strange, and my idea of fun is usually doing something really hard. I love to get out and hike and climb mountains and try something new. I've always been insatiably curious and wanting to just jump right in and learn something. So I love to just try something new. Last year, my husband and I decided to learn how to sail. I've taken improv classes, dove deep into yoga. I took yoga teacher training. I just love to learn new things.
See, this is what I'm talking about. A woman of many skills with talents up her sleeve. I can attest that after doing a couple hikes with Jen, she loves to challenge herself. But what I think is most important, and I know our listeners will hear from you today, is that challenging yourself goes far beyond a physical movement perspective. It's actually how you challenge your brain, your thought process, your perceptions, your impact. And you do it with everyone that you come in contact to. And I respect that a lot. And I think that we need more leaders like that in today's world. So if it's all right with you, I would like to dive into my first question for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Shoot.
I know personally, from getting to know you, I would describe you as somebody who does see potential in others often before they see it in themselves. And I think the longer that I get to know you and the more I know about you, instances of where that has played out in your life and in your leadership surface. And I think that it's a beautiful leadership philosophy. And because of your fascinating background from being a volunteer firefighter at the age of 36 to building GTM strategies and trekking Nepal, like that, those are decisions that you make for yourself, but that I also know people joined you for. And I would love to get some perspective around the evolution through some of those really hard and challenging decisions with the thought in mind of you influencing through questions, not answers. So I think that that's often counterintuitive for people. So can you share a little insight or context into how you discovered that approach and how you use it in your leadership?
I think that the world is very noisy. There is a lot of people out there claiming to be experts and having the answers. And I think at a very young age, I somehow realized that nobody really knows everything. Maybe they think they know things, but I just learned to really kind of listen to myself and trust myself. And I think that has really helped guide me and helped me to look inwards. And when I think about leading people, I want them to be confident in understanding what they need and what is important to them. And I think it's really important to approach life with that curiosity, because you're not tied into some specific expectation or outcome. When you're approaching things with like, what if, like what if this is possible? What if I do this? What if I try this? I just think that we don't know.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think that I love what you said about the curiosity approach, because I think that in and of itself opens avenues for different perspectives to even come out, and you're seeking them. And I can think of multiple times throughout my career and in my personal life where I thought doing the right thing was having all the answers and always giving the answers. And the higher level leader that I became in my corporate role, I recognized that put a lot of weight on me to carry. I actually wasn't developing anybody around me. And I flipped that narrative to where I would start asking more questions, and that blossomed the relationships in ways that I never thought were going to be possible. And the options of things that we would decide and move forward on, or the different case A, B, and C scenarios, were obviously 10 times better than they would have been if I just gave my approach for A, B, and C. Is there an example of a time where maybe you got super curious with someone, and obviously it can stay confidential with names and companies and all the topics, but of a time that you leaned into curiosity and it provided an outcome that wasn't even on your radar, maybe in a positive way?
Yeah, early in my leadership journey, I worked for a company that I would say had a tendency of micromanagement. We were all remote, and I had been promoted up into the leadership role and had a team of 8 people reporting to me. And COVID happened. And it suddenly all of our consultants were home, managing being stay-at-home parents while working and all of the other things that were going on. And it required all of us to be curious about completely reimagining the work-life balance. And I can remember specifically a situation where I had somebody who I didn't know what was going on. They weren't communicating with me, right? And instead of making assumptions about what was happening, I remember reaching out and saying, "Are you okay? Like, what can we do? Is everything okay? How can I support you?" Like, and that person still talks to me. I haven't worked with them in a very long time. They still reach out to me once in a while and thank me. And I think that showing up with curiosity instead of saying, "Hey, you're not at your desk, like doing your job," and just being curious about like what's happening in this person's life that is causing friction, right? Instead of just showing up and saying, "Hey, I expect you to do X, Y, Z," and yeah. So I think that whole experience being a new leader during COVID required a lot of flexibility.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great example. And one thing, oddly enough, I am working on with an individual client right now is the approach that you just described. And obviously in COVID and moving responsibilities to a remote world shifted an employee's experience to execute in a completely new way. And some leaders adapted with curiosity, and some really struggled to get the buy-in and the productivity of their team on the other side because they expected it to be business as usual. And with this client, we just were talking about how high-level leaders they should always have an agenda of things that they are responsible for moving the needle of, right? And we prepare, and when things are off course, our job is to step in and get it back on track. And we have our agenda to go in and lead those conversations and fix whatever the problems are and get things back to business. But where leaders really struggle is that they don't stop and ask the question that you asked in that moment. How are you doing?
Yeah.
And when you know something is off, whether it's in their response or their body language, or you pick up on their cues that they're just down, they're short, their communication changes, their verbiage changes. And if you don't take the step to say, what's going on, or how are you, or is there anything that's on your mind you want to talk through, and show up as a human first, and you just enter with that agenda, it's such a turnoff for employees. It's such a turnoff for the team. And it's a huge disengager when it comes to retention, because the team feels like you care about me because you care about the job that I do, not the person behind who is doing the job. Yeah. And I just think that that's such a huge moment to recognize in your leadership and in that situation.
Yeah, I think the human mind is great at making up stories. So
yes,
if you don't know the answer and you're making assumptions, you know what they say about assumptions, right? And so, for me, it's always trying to show up with curiosity, and not with judgment. And even of myself, right? We are our own worst critics, and we can be very attached to outcomes in the way we perform as leaders. And I think it's really important to just be really curious and understanding.
Yes, I could not agree more. And I think that the curiosity moment, from what I pick up too, is throughout your leadership journey and early on in a different career position or responsibility era. And that one shift is like an awakening moment for a leader, and it shifts the way that you lead going forward. And as leaders of people and different projects for fun in our lives and at work, there's a lot of awakening moments. And I know in some of our conversations, I got a behind the scenes preview from Ron for you that happened on a Zoom call with the fire department, and you asking for respectfully clarification through questions and getting ripped into. And most people would shrink back and shut down. But what stood out to me from you sharing that is that you chose to do something different. And I would love for you to take us into that conversation or into that room and share that awakening story for you. Because I feel like that is something that a lot of leaders are in the middle of right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it was a really eye-opening experience for me personally. And I'll just take a step back actually for the audience to understand. My husband and I had moved to the mountains in Colorado, and I was a project manager at the time. I think I was leading a team of project managers at the time. So I think I was already in a leadership role. Anyway, the fire department came and knocked on our door. They are a volunteer department. I heard my husband talking to him. We had just moved in. They said, "Do you want to join the department?" And he said, "Yes." And I was like, wow, he's a software engineer. He runs a company. He started his own company. We've never done anything like this. So he joins after a year being in the department. People were telling me, "Oh, you should join." There were a lot of women in the department. There were actually a lot of couples in the neighborhood that were in the department together. And after about a year of him doing that, I said, I think I do want to try this. I am petite. I am not what I think of when I think of a firefighter. I didn't know if I could do it, but I was willing to try. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. I was terrible at it in a lot of ways. I had to study really hard. And I passed. I passed Fire Academy. I still to this day cannot believe. And I served on the department for 5 years. We had a new leader come in, and in the beginning it seemed okay, but we started hearing kind of grumblings of stuff going on. And I don't like to get involved in people's drama. If someone's really nice to me and I don't have a problem with them, I kind of try to stay out of it. Like if you have a problem with someone, I really believe you go and you address it with that person. But I am also super comfortable with having hard conversations, and not everyone is. Anyway, people started leaving the department. There were a lot of things happening and things were getting very tense. And I was in a meeting, because COVID was happening. The meeting was remote and it was over Zoom, and the entire department was in the meeting, and the chief was talking, and he was basically chastising the department for doing something wrong on an emergent call. And his instructions were unclear. And I could tell from the body language of everyone on the call that a lot of people were confused. I was the only one with the audacity to speak up and ask a clarifying question. That was perceived as questioning authority, as you can imagine, in the fire department world. And he ripped me a new one, just on the Zoom call. Everyone saw it, and so badly that I had people texting me after, "Are you okay?" And I worked in a call center. I've dealt with unhappy people. So I was fine. Their reaction is not about me. It's about them. I was like, okay, this didn't go well. So they invited me to their office to have a conversation. I thought this was in the interest of actually talking about what happened and resolving it. And I think that's the incident that you're
Yes.
talking about. So naively, I went into the station to have this conversation with the chief without my lieutenant or anything with me. And as soon as I walked in, I knew I had made a terrible mistake. I could just tell from the body language, from the look, that this was not a collaborative conversation that was going to happen. And so I sat down in the chair, and I've never seen anybody look at me like that. And I actually felt unsafe, and I stopped the conversation and I said, "This isn't productive. I don't feel safe right now. And the next time we talk, I want someone else here." And I left.
I wish, first of all, thank you for sharing this and the background context, because yes, this is exactly what I was thinking of and asking about. And I think it's very courageous of you to be open to having this conversation in this style of platform. But I also hope you hear me when I say, I know there are people that are sitting in that exact spot right now. They might have just left that conversation and pick up this episode to listen to. And the navigating aftermath is a lighthouse for somebody that needs to hear it. And personally, I've been in my own version of these situations, and all I needed was a lighthouse to help me get through it too. And I appreciate you being open to having this with me. And I think about the courage on a call with multiple people, from peers, subordinates to everyone. Hierarchy obviously is very important and serves a purpose, but I also think that leaders can get lost in the context of really supporting their people when the clarifying questions aren't even allowed to be asked. There's a huge gap there and a miss. And as someone who historically is the peacekeeper role, what do you feel like shifted in the moment for you to choose something different, when it could have been to ask the question, or it could have been in the reservation of you saying in the in-person meeting, this is no longer productive, and for this to move forward, I want a third party in here to stand up for yourself? Is that something that is in line with the peacekeeper you that had always shown up, or was there a moment that shifted what you chose to do next, or say or do next?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's just age and wisdom that you get as you grow into an adult. But very much, I would say I was the peacekeeper in a way at home, growing up. And conflict used to really bother me. Like if somebody was upset, I would definitely internalize that and think that, and there's a lot around that and growing up that yeah. Anyway, I think at a certain age and going through certain experiences, you start to realize that it's not your responsibility to make other people happy. And it is your responsibility to, if you have a question or if you don't feel safe or if you need to speak your truth, to do that. And it's only a detriment to yourself to not do that. Obviously, there's definitely a tactful way to go about questioning authority, if you will. Yeah. And, I think only an insecure leader is going to feel threatened by a question. And that's the answer that I think a lot of people need to understand. I walked away from that situation wondering everything that I had done wrong and over analyzing, how did I say that? How did I show up on that call? Where did because I take a lot of pride in my ability to communicate. And I had put a lot of time and effort into that community, and it's still a huge loss in my life, I think, to walk away from all of that. And that's actually what happened. And later that leader left, only after half the department left.
And sadly, that is often what ends up happening. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to interrupt you.
No.
Yes.
One toxic leader. Yeah. And you have a problem.
A big one. I think one question that I do have, I thought that was so eloquently said, is how did that experience change your approach to leadership going forward with toxic behavior in a professional setting? Because I do think that if we were to take a frame and go pop that into certain scenarios for people, it is the toxic leadership in a professional setting that typically is the fuse that ignites a whole lot of issues and internal conflict with self-identity and self-worth. And I think one important point to highlight is how accountable you are as an individual and as a leader. You just shared about what could I have said differently? How did I say this? What way could I have done this differently? Here's what I know I've given. Did I give this with the right, purpose behind it? And understanding the impact that your role has in any position, whether or not you have leader in it, you're a position of influence. And so I think the accountability piece is huge for a leader to even have the ability to understand growth and impact from that lens. But I'm curious of what stayed with you from that experience around and rooted in toxic leadership in a professional setting, and how that changed your approach as you continued on through multiple career avenues and impact since then.
I think it taught me about trusting my gut, and really listening to myself, and understanding that not everybody has the capacity to have a conversation that's challenging. At that time, I think I had a lot of hope, if you know, and I realized in that moment that not everyone deserves your time and your peace, and it wasn't about me. And I think leading into more recent experiences, I was able to kind of see that situation coming in a different way, in a different light, more readily. I guess I saw it coming this time because I had been through it. I had been through that moment where I was in a situation with someone who didn't have the capacity to have a hard conversation and didn't have the emotional intelligence, and really there was no good that was going to come out of that conversation. Right. So I think I'm able
I love this.
to sit now.
I absolutely love this conversation, and I have a feeling there will be a part 2 episode in our future, because there's so many layers to the impact of toxic leadership and how it shows up. And for most people, they don't realize it has been toxic, or they have allowed toxic behaviors to influence them for way too long, and it comes out when they break. And I think that I'm going to pin for a conversation of another day, because there is one step next that I would love for you to be able to share today. And it ties into how impactful that fire department experience was, and how it helps shape your next step in your own leadership philosophy of what you would do in the future. And going from somebody who historically has the keep the peace sign that travels with them, and that's what they're known for, and that's the role that we play in a team, to standing up against what everyone's used to seeing you as, and standing tall in your values of what is right and wrong and feels right and wrong, and what you're willing to carry or let go, is so important, because that goes back to your values as a leader, no matter what role you're in. And I'm curious how that now shows up in your business, and as a leader in your own business who also has built out framework to support people through their own growth and transformations, and how that practically plays out in their life. And I would love to pivot into what you're doing current day and jump into the Brave framework, because from where my understanding is, I can understand where the seeds were planted for the Brave framework to be born and flourish from. And I would love to give you the chance to connect that bridge for our listeners, and to take us through what your Brave framework is. Because it sounds like it does come from our own transformations, but also with practice and repetition, and it works. So I would love for you to share some context into that too.
Yeah. Let me start by saying that I moved from California to Colorado with my husband, and it was a huge catalyst for growth, because suddenly I was in a new environment with people I didn't have the same friend group anymore. I was meeting all new people. I was doing all new things, and everything that I was attached to as my identity, as who I was suddenly out the window, right? I was able to like reinvent myself. I was able to decide how I wanted to do things. I had moved on from my high school friend group of doing what I was doing. And suddenly I was out there, hiking all the time, trying all these new things because I didn't know. I'm a young 30-year-old, I only lived in one place before in California. And suddenly I'm in this new place. So I would say that like moving was a catalyst. And then the fire department was the second catalyst because never in my life up until that point would I have, if I had like had a dream and I had seen myself sitting in a fire truck or doing any of the things that I did, I would not think that that was a reality, right? And so I think moving, changing my environment, going through that entire experience taught me that you just don't even know what you're capable of. Like you cannot even possibly imagine all the things that you're capable of.
I agree with that. And I would love if by the time this episode does air, we could include a picture of you to honor your time as a part of the fire department as well, because the stories that I have heard or things I have read and witnessed in you are a walking, living, breathing example of just that. And getting to not only witness what you have done and how you have done it, but getting you to also see that in yourself. That is inspiring to somebody on the outside. That is encouraging for someone who wants that and is scared and puts those limitations on themselves. Shocker, I'm talking about myself here, but I know I'm not alone in that. And I think it's a gift to be able to see you witness yourself through that lens, because that also affirms taking risks and challenging yourself by being brave. It can change your life, and it can change the way that you fulfill your life. And at the end of the day, that is what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. So the brave framework, the way that I think about this is you're now like the really hard things that you do that are life changing, you don't feel ready for. You're not confident before you do them. You get confident from doing them when they suck, when you suck, when you're not very good at it, when it's really hard. I don't think you grow as a person from doing the easy things or doing the things that you're great at. It's like, okay, let's say cold plunging. You love cold plunging. Okay, well, that's probably not really helping you. If you do cold plunging and you absolutely hate it, it's probably really helping your brain. So,
do the hard thing. Do the thing you don't want to do. That's where the growth is hiding. Yes.
That is where the growth is hiding. So the BRAVE framework, so it's an acronym. So B is for breathe. And this is the thing that, you learn in yoga, and you learn through sitting in the feelings. And I think, unfortunately, a child of the 80s, we were taught children are to be seen and not heard. Like, I remember being sent to my room for crying. You were not supposed to have emotional outbursts, and so breathe and sit with what you're experiencing without trying to change it. And be okay that those feelings are going to come. They're going to be like waves, and you're going to watch them go through your body. You're going to feel them, and it's going to be fine. So the BRAVE framework starts with step 1, don't panic, just breathe.
I love this. And in the show notes, I will mention this at the end of the episode again, but we're going to put an outline of the framework and all of the contact information for you to dive into this deep with Jen, because there is so much value in this, and I would love to go through the meaning of each one. And because I get to interview you on my platform, I do have like a behind the scenes preview of some of this. And I know specifically with the breathe category, you had shared with me a moment of laying awake at 2 a.m. in those moments of uncomfortable growth and realizing that you value curiosity when you recognize in yourself that you stopped asking questions. So I guess for you, how do you help leaders identify what their actual values are versus what they think they should want?
Yeah, I think one, I actually had a friend help me with this. She leads a marketing company and she's a brand marketer. And we were doing a project together. And she said, look at this sheet of paper and circle your top 3 values. What words stand out to you? And I said, well, actually, I don't even see the ones that I want on here. And she's like, well, just make up your own, like, what are they? So I think we get so caught up in who we should be or what our titles are or who we are in our home life. And we introduce ourselves with our titles. We say, oh, I'm a mom of boys, or, oh, I'm a wife, or I'm, this, but who are you? Like, what are your values inside? And I think sometimes we get so caught up in all the other stuff that we don't take a moment to recognize what drives us internally. So my second step is like, sit and recognize, do an assessment. When did you last feel alive? What lights you up? When you get in a flow state, what are you doing? Identify what your non-negotiables are and what your values are, and then align everything around that. Yeah, sometimes we have to do stuff we don't want to do, and that's okay. Sometimes things are not fun, but when it's out of alignment with your values, that's when you have a problem. That's when our self-esteem suffers, our mental health.
There's like fireworks going off in my brain right now. Because yes, and yes. I do have a question with this in regards to recognizing what are some signs that leaders should watch for that might be telling them when they are in a state of compromising their values or their power. And as an example that is on the top of my mind is from our earlier scenario of wanting to shrink in that moment of fear and uncomfortableness and wrongdoing and just not being stable on your feet and knowing what's to come or how a conversation's going to go. That's a sign like something's wrong that's not aligning with your values in that moment. Are there any other tips or signs that you would want to share for leaders to watch for that are eye openers that something is out of alignment with your values there? And that's something that I would encourage you to maybe look into, or AKA call Jen and get started, because yes, ma'am. Thank you. That would be great.
Yeah, I think it's not normal to feel stressed out. Like you should not be living every day. I got to a point on Friday where I was already dreading. I was already having the Sunday scaries on Friday. Literally like, oh my God, I don't want to go in this Monday meeting. And that's when I was, okay, time to move on. Right. If it's not something that can be fixed and it's hurting your inner peace, then it's time to move on. You cannot out convince yourself to be okay in a situation that is out of alignment with your values. And the way that I know is I spend a lot of time checking in with myself. If I am not sleeping well, if I'm stress eating, if I feel tired and I don't want to do anything, if I'm antisocial, something's not right. So know yourself. Everybody's different. Know yourself. Recognize when something is out of alignment and ask yourself, what do I need? What am I not getting enough of? And, sometimes the job is really stressful and you can work through that and have a really good friend that you see on the weekend that, lights you up, or, you have to get joy somewhere. I'm not saying your job needs to be fun all the time, but you have to get joy somewhere. So recognize like the signs internally. And know
I absolutely love this. And I could have used this very early on in the last couple of years, because I stayed in that. I love how you said this. You can't out convince yourself. I stayed in that place for like 18 solid months, a year and a half almost. And it was absolutely miserable. And I to this day, I cannot tell you what I was trying to prove, who I was trying to prove it to, or what I thought would happen after sacrificing myself to try and convince myself to get through it. But with the help of therapy and a lot of inner work, it's because I was scared to do self check-ins. I knew how bad it was. I knew how bad my sleep was, or lack thereof. I knew the isolation that you mentioned. I'm antisocial. I'm pretty outgoing. I think anyone who has interacted with me would tell you that I could act that and then crumble. And it would take so much effort to show up as that same version who I thought I needed to be, because that's who I've always been. I was too scared to acknowledge in myself something's going on, because then I have a responsibility to now do something with that. It just would have saved me a ton of heartache. And so if you're in that place, rewind just a couple of minutes and listen to the advice and guidance that just came of how to do a quick spot check on yourself that might open some avenues to avoid that suffering pain cave. Because I would love to pay that forward to someone else from learning that the hard way. Sorry, tangent there, but back on track with Brave and into A, unless you want to add anything to that before moving into A.
I just want to say that no matter where you're at in your journey of recognizing what you need or asking for what you need, number one thing is never beat yourself up, right? Just like everything is a lesson. Everything's a gift, right? And it happens when it's supposed to happen, and you realize when you're supposed to realize. And I think we're all so good at saying, oh, I should have done this sooner, or I should have known this before, or just be thankful you know it now and you're moving on. It's like, just give yourself permission to be where you're at.
Yeah. I needed that. So thank you. Yeah. That's like a virtual hug in this episode. Thank you.
A virtual hug right now. I mean, there is like so much. Yeah. Even knowing what I know, and with my last job, I spent at least a couple weeks beating myself up for staying as long as I did. And then I was like, no, that's not, you were doing what you needed to do, and that's okay. So I think we're so good at like giving ourselves a hard time. Anyway, okay. A is a line. So like once you have taken your breath and you have recognized what you need and you figured out where the gaps are, set a couple of very clear alignment goals. I'm not saying blow up your life. I'm not saying move to a new state. I'm not saying join the volunteer fire department or quit your job or whatever. Really small, intentional actions that create alignment in your everyday life are where that's going to be game changing. For example, I just recently moved back to California, and I used to be really into photography. I love to create. And when I moved back, I just kind of went into my shell, and I was like, oh, I don't know people here. And I got really kind of in my head, and I wasn't doing the things that I normally did, like get out and hike and create. And I just sat and I thought, well, how can I get more aligned in my values of being creative and being adventurous? Just because I live in a new state doesn't mean I can't do those things here. And I had to really like make time and be intentional about aligning what my actions are with my values. So make time on your calendar.
I love this, and I am selfishly super grateful that you spent time doing this for you, because that is also, I think, what allowed our paths to cross one another outside of the yoga studio that we practice at and on trail. And I think what's super important, and I love the example of this too, is that aligning, breathing, recognizing the current reality, and pulse checking the values alignment, but then putting your goal in alignment with that to bring you back into your values. I got to practice that real life with you because I want to experience California, and I don't want to go hike by myself. It's huge and scary and hot. And I am from the Midwest, so this is all very different, even 6 years later, because I never got outside of the job that I had. And now I do. And I want to be someone who hikes and explores and meets new people because they're outdoors and just enjoys outside. And meeting you and knowing that that common goal of wanting to bring community into a place of that here allowed me to feed a decision of, yes, I don't know this person yet, but I know she wants to be outside and hike, and I know that I want to be someone who is outside and hiking. I'm going to do this with her because that feeds my value of connection and community, but also growing my presence outside of four walls in my house, and that isolation. And it is so cool to get to hear the building process behind Brave Framework and be someone as a friend that also gets to see how you live this in your own life and the impact that it makes. It's amazing. Sorry for getting us off track there, but this is so cool.
I love it. No, thanks. And thanks for hiking with me. Yeah, I think we get caught up in our daily routine, right? And we get so focused on doing the next task, doing the laundry, doing the grocery shopping, doing all the things. It's very easy to get out of alignment with the things that bring us joy because we have all these other responsibilities. And suddenly life becomes about being the responsible adult. And sometimes I think about, wow, I didn't know when I was a kid, I had it so lucky. I went out and rode my bike with my brother all the time. You know what? You can ride your bike as an adult. Like, we just have to remind ourselves that, yes, you can go out and you can play and you can be a child when it makes sense. Like, do that, because that is what makes life worth living. So the alignment is like, okay, what do I need to do to add joy back into my life, to live my values, to have more fun, or whatever your values are. Okay, venture is the next one. So we're on V, brave. Venture is action-based. Like, don't talk about the trip. Don't say, oh, one day I want to go to Italy. Go to Italy. Life is short. Yeah, it's expensive. Okay, if you can't go to Italy, what's something you can do that is within reach, that is new, that's going to put you in a new position? And maybe it's uncomfortable. Maybe you're scared to do it a little bit. That's how you build confidence. That's how you really test yourself, is to do something. The venture, right, is to try something new.
I love this.
And the last one is evolve. And so we're on E. So evolve is, okay, you sat with yourself, you felt the feelings. That's sometimes the hardest part. You recognized what you needed, you made time, and you aligned your life to allow for more of that. Then you ventured, you tried something new. I have met people who literally they don't know what they like to do. If you're in your 40s and you don't know what you like to do, you need to go find out right now. Or in your 30s, I don't care what age you are. Go find what you like to do. Life is way too short to not have a hobby or not have something that lights you up. So venture is really about go try it. keep trying it until you find it. Some people hate the outdoors, Brenna. I don't understand. I'm like, can I sleep outside? Can I be in the dirt? Can I climb the tree? Can I climb the mountain? Can I ride the bike all day? I want to be outside. So, but some people hate it, and that's okay. Don't do what you like.
That's a fact. I also want to be someone that reads. Well, in order to do that, you need to have the book and time and the space and capacity to read. But I now can define myself as an active reader, not only leadership development notebooks behind me, but personal ones that are on my venture list. I would love to read a romantic novel, and I stopped waiting and I just picked it up. But now it's a part of what I do because I love both. I love being active, and I also love feeding my soul and solace and silence. But into evolving, I love how the framework ties together because it feeds your values and your alignment and how the choices you make and what you choose to spend your time on every day. And it helps you continue to evolve. And it's not just an achievement of X position and now this is who I am, my job title, and this is it. It is recreating and staying curious, to tie back into what you mentioned at the very beginning, even when it takes a lot of courage. Feeding the brave framework through curiosity is how you can fulfill your life by continually evolving. I just absolutely love this. Anything, before I cut us off, anything with E to tie out the brave framework?
Say that I would say every 10 years, you're probably like a completely different person. If I look at myself 10 years ago or 10 years before that, yeah, you evolve. And if you're not evolving, what are you doing? Right? Like you evolve, you're changing, you're growing, you're having experiences. And the way you evolve is to tune into those opportunities, right? And be curious. And I think the world is full of infinite possibilities when you are open.
I could not agree more. Are you up for a quick challenge by chance?
Of course.
So as a recovering people pleaser myself, I know a couple of our listeners are as well. And I am curious how you would help someone make a shift as a people pleaser with a statement that I heard you say that I often think about, because it's also helped me create what is Legacy Fulfilled today, worded in values as a leader. And that statement is this: your values aren't meant to be modified for others' comfort. To all the people pleasers right now, they probably just felt the weight in their stomach drop. But the first time you said this, your values aren't meant to be modified for others' comfort. Explain what that means, or how to guide someone, if you will, in making a shift and why it matters.
Yeah. So I think it comes back to, I had a therapist for a little bit who was helping me with some stuff with a family relationship. And I remember her asking me, what made you feel like you were responsible for their happiness? And I just sat there quietly, and I was like, wow, I don't know. Why did I take that on myself? Like, why did I feel like I needed to make some kind of experience for them? And then that evolved in my mind of realizing that the best thing I can do for myself is do what I need to be the best version of me. And how that impacts other people is not on me, unless of course I'm doing harm for some reason, which, if they are disturbed by my happiness for whatever reason or whatever is happening, that's really on them and it's about them. And I think that reframe really helped me to realize that, like, you can never control how someone else feels about what you're doing, or, you can't control that outcome. So detaching from that responsibility and realizing that you're only responsible for your own happiness and the impact of that, if you've ever lived with someone in your life that's deeply unhappy, you know that that has an impact on everyone else around them. And the way that you create a better partnership or a better life for your kids or whomever is in your life is to be okay with you and happy with you. And then that means you have to do the things that you need.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so good. I started to crack a smile if you're watching this or you're listening to this podcast instead of watching it on YouTube. But I smile because similar to I'm assuming, therapist dialogue, I didn't recognize this until more recently in my life. But as a little kid, my dad's favorite thing to say to me was, "You worry about you. You worry about you, kiddo." I can hear it clear as day. And for a really long time, "You worry about you," I took as, well, if I worry about me, that means I need to worry about everyone else. That means I'm worrying about me because that's what I do best. And I quickly learned that could not be more wrong. You worry about you is exactly what you have surfaced through all of today's conversation. And it's allowed you to become the best version of yourself, to create a legacy that you're proud of, to live a life that is fulfilling and that is right in alignment of values for you. So you worry about you. I hope he listens to this episode and gets a good giggle, because that's one I think about often. I know one of your favorite leadership quotes is, "Your job isn't to be perfect. Your job is to be brave enough to try, smart enough to learn, and resilient enough to iterate."
Yes.
I think I know that will resonate with so many leaders that are paralyzed by perfectionism and worrying about others instead of worrying about themselves. What's one thing that a leader could do today or this week to start living in this philosophy or in this perspective on what it could do for them?
I think that showing up authentically and owning mistakes without being self-critical is really important. Build in public, share what you're doing, share what you're trying, and not just when it's successful. Like, I think it's really important to show the growth part of that, and to be very accepting of your own failures, so that you're leading by example. I don't show up and pretend I'm perfect and I have all the answers and I got here and everyone should just listen to me, right? It's more about, like, I actually don't know. Let's figure this out together. And that's how I approach everything, is let's roll up our sleeves. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. There's a quote in a book, and I cannot remember now what book it was, but I wrote it down, and it's like somewhere along the lines of, how much more grace would you give yourself if you knew you were not supposed to get it right the first time?
Yes.
And it's like, yes, we all pretend like we're just supposed to automatically know the answer and get it right the first time. We're all just doing our best. We're all learning. Nobody knows everything. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yes, that is incredibly helpful. And I think it's a great reminder that we are all in the same place of growing, and we're not supposed to have it figured out. And I think that when you know you want to keep it real and be aligned in your values, that includes the good, the bad, the ugly. And living and showcasing the messy middle inspires others to embrace that in their own life. So from one leader to another, thank you for the work that you are doing and pouring into communities at large and leaders across all platforms, because it is beyond impactful, and it's desperately needed. And as we round out our interview here today, I could not end the episode without asking this. And I think what you said a couple minutes ago about our values evolve, we evolve, our preferences and desires and goals obviously change. And it's important to do check-ins to recognize what has changed in you. And so if you were to share current day, what legacy do you want your leadership to leave? And how does that legacy drive what you do right now as current Jen Pinter?
I just want everyone that I meet to be, everyone that I have in my life to be inspired to try more things, and to, in doing so, build confidence in themselves. That I mean, obviously people have their own level of confidence, and I think I have a lot of great confident people in my life. I just mean that, like, I just love it when someone is like, I didn't think I could do this, and I just went and did it because you inspired me, right? I don't know. I just want my legacy to be like, everybody says, oh, because of Jen, I went and did X, and I never thought I could do it, and I did it, and maybe I hated it, but I tried it.
I love it, and I can attest, you are living in that right now. And I think this is why, even for legacy fulfilled, I chose fulfilled, not to be fulfilled or fulfilling. It is active right now in what we do. And that is a complete embodiment of the way I know you live your life and you lead yourself through your life. And as a friend who also respects you as a mentor and as that person of impact and of influence in my own life, every week there's probably a point where I am like, Jen pushed me and this was so good. I didn't think I could do this. Even the bad stuff of like, wow, I just vulnerably shared how terrible this is going, and she heard me and didn't make me feel bad. So I just thank you for being who you are, the work that you have done and continue to do, and the work that you share, because it is eye-opening for everyone around you in a positive way. And just know you've got one big fan over here, sister, and I will be rooting for you every step of the way. As I begin to close us out today, I do want to ask and give you the opportunity to share where listeners and leaders can connect with you to learn either more about Brave Framework or getting the details of some upcoming offers that you may have, or anything just to stay in touch and follow along what's next in your world. How can leaders best connect with you?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Brenna. And I so appreciate this and everything that you're doing. I'm just so glad that we met. And so a couple of things that I'm working on right now that I'm super excited about. I am really interested in creating spaces where women can get together in a non-judgmental way and try things that are slightly scary. And so with that, I am putting together very intentional challenge weekends. I don't call them retreats because we're not sitting around and doing spa masks. We're doing hard things. And so definitely we're going to have one next summer in Lake Tahoe. And I will give you information about that, the landing page. Also, I am in the midst of really working on my storytelling and keynote speaking. And I've done a few keynote speaking engagements over the years. And I love to talk about this topic, about growth, about leadership, about challenging what we think are our boundaries. So if you have anything that you need a keynote speaker for on that, that's a great way. And I think, Brenna, you have my speaker website and profile, so feel free to reach out that way. And then I'm also on Instagram, of course.
Perfect. And for easy access, we will include all the links and framework in the show notes today. And I will be sure to share the opportunity for the Lake Tahoe fun doing the hard things weekend next summer. And I hope you can join, because I look forward to attending and also doing the hard thing alongside you. So thank you for sharing that. As we close out today's episode, Jen, from my heart to yours, I want to thank you so much for today's conversation, for continuing to show up as a leader rooted in both humility and bravery. It takes so much work, and being able to not only do it, but reflect in it enough to be able to articulate it for others to grow from and learn from and have as a point of reference and impact on their life is so big. I look up to you. I thank you. And I am rooting for you. And just thank you for joining me and my audience and sharing a piece of your leadership with us on the podcast. So thank you.
Thanks, Brenna.
That's it for this episode of Legacy Lounge, a podcast dedicated to empowering you to lead with purpose. Remember, leadership begins with you. When you're connected to your values, strengths, and authentic self, you show up powerfully for your team, businesses, and everyone you lead. To authentically lead others, you must first lead yourself. I challenge you to consider, how are you investing in your personal growth to create a legacy that you envision? Thank you for joining me in the Legacy Lounge. If this episode sparked any thoughts or inspired action, I'd love to hear from you. I'm your host, Brenna Rollins-Williams. Connect with me on LinkedIn or other socials, and let's continue the conversation. Remember, your legacy is built one intentional step at a time.